Synthpop, massive pop rock band from America, one of the biggest bands of the 2000s in general. Even to this day, they're still pretty huge. They had some smash hits back in their early days, up until the late 2000s. Can't really think of the last time they had a massive hit though, I must admit. They're not quite as impactful these days, although it doesn't really matter because, particularly in the UK, do we love ourselves some Mr. Brightside? We love that song. We get turned the fuck up to Mr. Brightside at every wedding, at every pub, at every party you could imagine. It's on every radio station. We fucking love that song because I don't know why. It's all right. It's just all right. It's not that good. It's fine. It's not even their best song. I think When You Were Young is better, but no one really plays that song half as much as Mr. Brightside. It's all right. It's all right. Stop playing that song. Over the years, though, they've had just some killer singles. Killer. They've been all right. I think their albums in general aren't that strong. The last one in 2017 didn't really do much for me. There were, again, a couple of good tracks, but for the most part, the entire thing was pretty much throwaway. I even was ready to throw away this album, honestly. I wasn't that bothered about it, but I checked it out, and to be fair, it might be one of their best in quite a while because they seem to be hitting a spot this time. Their influences are so blatantly obvious, and yet it doesn't really seem to be hindering the quality of the music. I don't think anyone would be completely out of the ordinary to say that Bruce Springsteen is influencing this. In fact, I probably am not the first person that's going to point that out. There is just so much Springsteen influence, that Heartland rock era, you know, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, stuff like that, that kind of like larger than life, just over the top, passion filled, just like synth type of stuff that you heard from the best days of Bruce. Clashing synths that come through on some of these tracks is just so 80s, so bombastic and in your face. And it's hard to really shake away the obvious comparisons that you could make, but to be fair, it's not really like affecting the music that much. It's actually working in their favor. It's working with the vocals that are just so larger than life and in your face. Brandon Flowers is not the best singer around, of course, not even close to being one of the best singers around, but he is selling the hell out of these songs, which is enough for me to appreciate it. The opening track just has these completely passionate vocals that are so hard to shake away. It's infectious, actually. It honestly is infectious. The way he's singing here is really nice to hear. And then you get the chorus, which is just so bloody euphoric. That again, it's just so like coming of age type stuff. You would hear this in like the big moment in a coming of age film. You could honestly replace any song from a big moment in that kind of film with this song, and I feel like it'd work, to be fair. The thing is though, is that it's done so well here that there are a few moments across the album where the repetition gets a bit mundane, like listening to them try and repeat this song on tracks like Caution, for example, just feels a bit stale. Not to say that it's particularly bad in the way it sounds, it's a fine track, but I just think it gets a bit repetitive hearing them, you know, formulate these tracks in a very similar way throughout. Because Dying Breed has these smashing synths that come together, they clang together in a way that just rings in your ears, but it's done really well. I mean, it sounds good, but then, you know, doing it again on Caution just kind of feels like, okay, we're retreading similar ground, and it's just not quite as satisfying. Luckily though, there is a bit of diversity throughout. I mean, there are tracks that go for a bit more of like a stripped back type sound. I feel as though the second track feels like it's more akin to something like Alex Cameron. This track, Blowback, has this swag to it, which I really like. Again, it's not really as in your face, some of the more like over the top moments, these stadium filler moments, but it still works for what it is. Running Towards a Place feels more like something that War on Drugs would have done on their Lost in the Dream album. Definitely reminds me of something like Red Eyes, although I think what the War on Drugs did on that song just took it to a new level, and this track isn't quite as powerful as that one, but I still appreciate again that their influences are wearing very obviously, and it's making the tracks work for what they are. The completely unexpected Wise Blood collaboration is pretty nice too. She had one of my favorite albums of last year, still is one of my favorites of last year too. Love that thing. I think her voice is just so exquisite. Her vocals are just wonderful to listen to. My God, her voice is amazing. And on this track, no less, we do get those same vocals coming through. It works quite well. She sounds like a freaking angel just interrupting the song. The way her vocals just come through and she's like, she fits the stomping percussion on this part really well too, straight out of the 80s. Honestly, their influences are so bloody clear here that it's quite hard to avoid, but I think again, they're selling it in a nice way. And even at points where his vocals are a bit overwrought, just feel like he's going a bit too far with his voice, especially when he nears into the falsetto. He still isn't, you know, annoying me or anything like that. Although there are points where it feels like he's trying a bit too hard. And again, with the influences being so clear, it just sounds like they are trying their best to emulate an era here, as opposed to just, you know, naturally progress into this sound. It definitely feels like it's attempting to be nostalgic at points, which isn't exactly an off-putting thing. But the thing I noticed with this album was the more I listened to it, the less excited I was for some of the tracks. Like, I enjoy them when they're on, but they kind of just linger a little bit and don't really have that much of an impact on me. And that's probably just a personal thing. The final track is a solid track, it's a good closer, but I was just trying to picture myself, you know, going back to a song like this in my own time. Like, would I play this on a regular basis? Not really. There's a bit of like this weird emptiness to some of these tracks that just, it feels like it's lacking something. I can't quite explain it, it's weird, but it doesn't mean that the album's bad just because of that. I just think it falls short of being something truly special because there's just something not quite hitting in some of the tracks. But I think it's good overall. I mean, it's a good album, there's no denying that. I think you could get a lot of enjoyment out of some of these tracks, particularly some of the best ones. That first track is a great one. And yeah, you know what, it might be their best album in quite a long time as well. I think, again, their influences are so clear, but it doesn't really hinder them all that much. It's just there's something missing. Maybe originality, it might be that. Like, so many of these tracks just sound like Bruce Springsteen pastiches that I'm just not entirely sure, you know, what it is that the Killers are doing here that separates them from that. But I think a 6 out of 10 is worthy here. It's a good album, solid album, definitely worth your time. You might even like it a lot more than me, or you might like it less than me, I don't know. Let me know in the comments though. Definitely interested to see what you think of this one. And yeah, thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it, hopefully you got something out of it. Have a good day, subscribe if you haven't already, and goodbye.